All right, so 1975, Steven Spielberg had just finished up Sugarland Express. And of course, he'd done a made-for-TV movie, but Sugarland was his first theatrical. He's having a meeting with the producers. He sees this unpublished novel called Jaws, takes it home for the weekend, reads it, loves it, wants to do it. Turns out
Right.
to be the big success, right?
Yes,
The first summer blockbuster.
that's
Is
right.
that what kicks off the summer blockbusters was Jaws?
That's the common belief. At the time it came out, it became the highest grossing film of all time, and held on to that title, I guess, until Star Wars came along. I don't think Sugarland Express had been released yet. When he saw that the galleys for Jaws on his producer's desk, I guess he was working with Zanuck and Brown, and they recognized something in Steven Spielberg. He had done that TV movie, Duel, which was written by Richard Matheson, and which was presented as a TV movie in the United States, but it was so well received, it was actually released in Europe as a feature film in the theaters. Very well received there as well. So I guess Zanuck and Brown both realized, even at 26, he was going to really be an important filmmaker. Spielberg later said to Richard Dreyfuss, when he was trying to interest Richard Dreyfuss in joining the cast, he said he didn't want to make a film, he wanted to make a movie. And I think that when you look at Spielberg's early career with Jaws and many of the films that followed, including obvious things like Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T. and Jurassic Park, he had a love for exciting commercial movies, popcorn movies. And Jaws was that, but Jaws was also an excellent film in its own right.
Oh yeah.
That's what really made it special because of the way it was released. They put it in so many theaters at once in the summertime, and it established that pattern of Hollywood blanketing North America
Yeah.
with theaters that were showing a movie that everybody wanted to see. Matter of fact, in one of the documentaries, they talk about how, I guess it was Brown, uh, said he wanted to sort of pull back a little bit and not have it in so many theaters because he liked having people lining up in front of the theaters. He liked the shot of that, those photos of the long lines snaking around city blocks. And I think that's probably true. That's the one advantage of sort of restraining yourself when you're releasing a film, is that you do want to make it a sort of an exclusive thing that people are
Yeah.
trying really hard to see. But it's a wonderful movie, and I hadn't watched it. Uh, well, the first summer it came out, I saw it 5 or 6 times in the theater. I went every weekend practically for a while there. Uh, and of course, when it came out on VHS, right away, grabbed up a copy. And I would watch it once a year at least, up until around 20 years ago. I really don't want to overwatch certain movies that I loved as a kid because I don't want to ruin it for myself.
Right, yeah.
And I was sort of afraid that if I went back to this, if the conditions were not right, if it wasn't a good transfer or whatever, that it would ruin the experience for me. But I went back just a few days ago. I had a DVD, a special edition DVD that Spielberg approved
All right.
a couple of years ago, several years back when DVDs were still the main format, and put that up on my 55-inch smart TV. And really it was just like watching it in the theater for the first time.
I guess the
And
first time I would have seen it would have been on TV. They would have like, every summer, obviously some channel would show it.
right,
AMC, whatever, whatever channels were out back then. Um, when I went to watch it again yesterday, I thought, I hope I still enjoy it. Because I hadn't seen it in so long. I was like, I hope that nostalgia is not making it a really good movie. And I'm
right,
gonna watch it today and it's gonna be horrible or
right,
something. But no, I
right.
still enjoyed it. It still holds up.
Yeah, I thought especially the first half of the film really is just it's beautifully done. And I just sat as I was watching, I was thinking, how did Spielberg learn? And I know he had one of the great film editors, Verna Fields,
Over
working on
Fields,
this
yeah.
right alongside of him. She was actually there on Martha's Vineyard, in the place where they shot the movie, and she set herself up and had her editing equipment there, and she was editing the stuff as they were shooting it. And when I watch it now, I said, it's so precise. He has the beats. Every vignette pays off. It's not a film. Very often you see films where the story just sort of struggles along, and
Yeah.
you have to sit through the boring parts. But every scene is special. Every scene has a bump to it, a gag of some kind, a funny line, a memorable thing. And that's all through the film, really.
The pacing of the whole movie, the beginning, fast, quick, quick, quick. Once Richard Dreyfuss shows up and doing all that, slows it down. Of course, the kid died, the girl died. They realize they didn't catch the big shark, and and then once they get on the boat with Quint, it kind of picks up again.
Right,
I
right.
thought that was great. I just wonder what was the pacing like in the book.
Well, the book is an odd thing. I mean, I don't think Peter Benchley, he's passed away now. I don't think he ever claimed that he was a great, writer of fiction. And the way things developed started with like I guess he wrote for like 4 pages or something, or wrote a paragraph explaining the idea, and somebody at Doubleday, an editor at Doubleday said, yes, we'll pay you to develop that.
Right,
Here's a couple of $1,000, write like the first 4 chapters, and we'll see. And it seemed like it was a bit of a strain for him. He seemed to have a little difficulty in doing it. He turned out a book that I remember enjoying very much when I read it. This is the edition that I had. It's actually just before they put this little thing on it that says coming soon as a
right,
major motion picture. But it was essentially the same edition. And this artwork, some of the great, most iconic artwork that was ever done for a book or for a movie, this artwork apparently was done for the book. This was based on the design that was on the hardcover version, which was very stylized and simplified. It was just a representational thing with a symbol that looked like a shark and a symbol that
right.
looked like all on black. And then this artist went to the nearest natural history museum, found a shark, actually took a picture that's exactly like this, and he made a painting, this famous painting. He hired a model to lay flat on a stool so that it would look like she was swimming. So that became the cover of the paperback. The paperback became an enormous bestseller. And apparently the folks at Doubleday gave the poster to Universal.
Right.
And the whoever was responsible for that decision said they regretted it later. They should have asked for some money because it
Yeah.
became this enormous thing. It was on everything that summer. Beach towels and balloons and t-shirts, everything had this freaking shark on it. So this is the edition, or just before this was the edition I read as a kid, and I went through it very quickly, thought it was a great read. But when you go back now, you see one of the problems with it. Uh, and it's sort of unavoidable as a book. He puts in all sorts of character stuff that was unnecessary in the movie. So it was easily cut out. And I think even with Peter Bench, because he wrote the first couple of drafts of the screenplay, even
Right.
he acknowledged that that stuff had to go. He discussed it with Spielberg, and they both agreed that the romance between Hooper and Brody's wife, that had to go. All the stuff about Brody's wife being coming from a well-to-do family and her sort of coming down in the world to marry Chief Brody, all of that has been put by the wayside. So there's a lot of things that were in the book that made it an entertaining read, but would have really made it cause problems in the movie. It would have really
Right.
bogged things down terribly. Also, the book has a rather flat ending. After Quint dies, the shark is coming after Brody, and it just sort of succumbs to its injuries because they've been stabbing with harpoons and everything up to that
Yeah.
point, and it just sort of drifts to the bottom of the ocean. And Spielberg apparently was the one that pushed for a big, powerful ending. And boy, did he come up with a good one.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, Peter Benchley was saying it's a ridiculous idea, the shark wouldn't have an air tank in his mouth, but it worked like gangbusters. I mean, I remember seeing it that first weekend when the film came out, and the audience just they blew up just like the
Yeah.
shark did. Yeah, it was an enormous reaction. So if there's two people maybe on the planet that don't know the basic premise of Jaws, it's about a New England beach community that is suffering from a series of shark attacks. First shark attack occurs right at the beginning of the film. The young girl goes skinny dipping. Her boyfriend falls asleep dead drunk on the beach.
Yeah.
And while she's out in the water, there's this very shocking attack. She gets pulled under and then she's being pulled around in the water. Chief Brody is a New Yorker in the movie. He's a New Yorker who's transplanted to Amity Island, which is the name of this fictional New England beach community.
Listen, Chief, be careful, will you?
In this town? Hey.
As soon as the first shark attacks occur, Chief Brody wants to shut the beaches down, and the Mayor Vaughn, tells him this is a community that survives on the business they do on the 4th of July
Yeah,
and
they're
the
having their
summer,
regatta.
right?
You yell Barracuda. Everybody says, huh? What? You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
So they pressure him into keeping the beaches open. Naturally, on the 4th of July, there's another shark attack, and a young boy, the Kittner boy, gets killed in front of everybody, another spectacular death. And then Chief Brody is able to pressure Mayor Vaughn into hiring Quint, who is a sort of an eccentric local fisherman who specializes in hunting and fishing for sharks. And they go out, Brody, Quint, and Hooper, who is a oceanographer. He's a well-to-do fellow with a fancy schmancy education.
Yeah.
You got city hands, Mr. Hooper.
So him and Quint, who's a sort of working class, guy with blood and grease on his hands all the time from skinning sharks or whatever they do to sharks, they butt heads. And the second half of the movie is their adventure at sea, going out in Quint's boat and hunting the shark. Nowadays, Brody would be a superhero.
Yeah.
Right? But at the time, he might have been a sort of template for other heroes. I see certain similarities to him in Ripley and Alien.
Right, yeah.
Both reasonable, level-headed people who want to do the right thing. They want to live up to their responsibilities and do things by the book to a certain extent. In Brody's case, though, he's unusual in that they really make him look like he's uncertain, unsure of himself.
Yeah, they even make him he has a fear of water.
He has a fear of water, so he's
Yeah.
already at a
And he's working on and
disadvantage.
he lives on an island. He's scared of
Right.
water, can't get on
Right.
a boat.
Right. And so in all the scenes where normally you would expect the hero to be the one right out front, he has to hang back, right?
Yeah.
When there's the beach scenes and the beaches are being evacuated, all the swimmers are being called in, he's just sort of running around the edge of the water. He can't get in the water.
Right.
And even earlier than that, there's the scene where he and the boy who was with the skinny dipping girl who was the first victim, they're walking along the beach the next day, and they intentionally make Brody look kind of awkward, right? He's carrying a bunch
Yeah.
of shit, he doesn't look like a hero. And there are little things all through the movie where they underscore that he's uncomfortable with the situation, not completely in charge. Like,
Yeah,
for instance,
when all the people show up they're all going to go out and catch the shark once they have the bounty, and he's trying to tell those guys, you got too many people on your boat. He doesn't want to deal with it because they're on the boat in the water. So he has
Hooper,
Richard Dreyfuss. You go tell. He don't even know who this guy is. He's like, hey, go tell those people they can't do that.
it's not that he's wishy-washy or a pushover. It's just that he doesn't seem completely confident in himself.
Yeah.
And he's obviously up against something in the corruption of the local officials. But I always remember, even as a kid, I remember thinking how clever it was to have them when they're just about to have the meeting at the town hall, and they're all walking down the hall, and there's a sign overhead, and Brody bumps his head on the
Yeah.
sign. That's what he's doing all through the movie. He's bumping his head on the sign all through the movie. Even when he gets on the boat, he shows up in, raincoat and everything. And Quint, of course, lays into him immediately. I see you brought your rubbers. And when he's on the boat, he's constantly fucking up.
Right.
He's pulling the wrong rope and causing the air tanks to go rolling around.
He is literally a fish out of water.
He is, exactly right. But all of those touches really just set the ending up for the enormous emotional impact that has when he's the last guy, right?
Yep.
He's the one that actually ends up killing the shark and doing it in such a spectacular fashion and in doing it in such an unorthodox fashion.
Yeah.
Right?
Smile, you son of a...
Building that character and making him somebody that we could empathize with and understand, and somebody you could look up to as a hero or as a role model because he was within our range, you know.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. And this is true. This was true of Rosemary's Baby. It's true of The Exorcist. Not so true of Alien. But in Jaws, they create this wonderful, idyllic life that we see them living, right? I mean, a lot of average person would probably consider the life that he and his wife are living on that island to be perfect, right?
Oh yeah.
Living on the beach, has a lovely family, you know, it just looks like perfect life. And that is the ingredient that you always need, is you have to establish a world that people find attractive, that they want to be in. They want to see that continue. They want to see these people continue to be happy. And then you have something horrible happen.
Right.
And they have to fight to keep what they have, to recover it, to pull it out of the jaws of the whatever monster it is or menace it is that's threatening them. There's this terrible sense of tragedy that you only get from these types of stories, right? This was sort of lumped in with disaster movies like Earthquake and Towering Inferno and things like that, and it does have certain similarities. You can't help but feel terrible sadness for these people, right? Especially like when the kid and the boy, we get to meet the mother. She says, "Oh, don't," you know, the boy is asking if he can go back into the water with his raft. And she looks at his fingers to see how pruned they are. And then she says, "All right, well, just another few minutes." And he goes out, and of course, he gets eaten by the shark. And she comes running out when everybody has come running out of the water screaming. She comes running out and she starts calling his name. And she's looking around and she sees the torn up raft, the inflatable, ripped
Yeah.
practically in half with blood all over it. And you think to yourself, isn't that a shame? My God. Can you imagine what a mother would feel like if she saw that? She just had the kid there a moment ago, and she's obviously concerned about his well-being. And the next time she sees him, he's not there. He's just a bloody smear on a ripped up raft. Painful, you know, heartbreaking to see, you know. And the woman who played the mother, a lot of people have commented that she looks too old to have been the mother of a young boy. Well, first of all, I don't know where folks get that. I mean,
Yeah.
there are a lot of women that decide to have children later in their lives. Obviously, they have a sort of deadline past
Yeah.
which they can't go. But we don't even know if that's her biological son, right? I mean, that does happen. People do adopt children,
Adopt,
right?
yeah.
So that's the sort of extra dimension that Jaws has. All through the film, there are these little touches of realism that make us believe that it almost has like a documentary quality, like those scenes of the people arriving on the 4th of July. That doesn't look like the way Hollywood normally should stuff like that.
Right.
Hollywood today would try to make everything look beautiful, and there'd be all beautiful, sexy women in bikinis, you know, everybody be bronzed, and they'd all have perfect hair and beautiful smiles. It would be that sort of fake thing. But here,
Yeah.
everybody seems real. There's homely people, fat people, old people, everybody, just like it is when you go to the beach, right? And that gives it a feeling of realism. You feel like this is a real world that you're entering into. And the fact that she's a little older than you would normally expect, she doesn't look like she came from central casting. If they said, give
Yeah.
us a young mom, that adds to it because she's also very good. You can really feel the emotion when she's looking at when she's on the beach, and also later when she slaps Brody. There's tremendous emotion in her, which is, you know, heartbreaking to see. One of the most dramatic scenes, one of the most powerful scenes in Jaws, when they're all sort of celebrating because a tiger shark has been caught. She's put up a reward for
Right.
somebody to catch the shark, and a bunch of fishermen, local fishermen, go out and they manage to find a tiger shark, and they have it strung up on the dock. And so they're all in high spirits, thinking, "Oh, the problem is solved now that the shark has been caught and killed." And she appears, the mother of the boy who's been killed on the beach.
Chief Brody,
Yes?
And a lot of people would probably say, well, it was me. I'd slap her right back. He doesn't because
Right.
he knows she's right. She says, basically, if you had done your job, my boy would be alive.
I think another part of that scene too is, she's blaming him for not closing the beach. And you got the mayor standing right beside of him, and he's the one who wouldn't let him close the beach, and he doesn't say anything. So it's like that guy's really an asshole if he's just gonna stand here and let, Brody take the blame for it,
Well, but he knows that ultimately it is his fault. He gave in because, it was the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
So he took that from her, not just because she's a grieving mother, but also because he knew even if he wasn't the only one to blame, he
Yeah.
certainly had to shoulder a lot of the blame. And that provides the spur. That's why he was willing to overcome his fear of the water and get out on a boat with Quint and Hooper. Probably weren't, certainly Quint, not the most personable individual, not somebody you
Right.
necessarily want to be spending time on a boat with, to go out and try to hunt down this shark.
Yeah,
Uh,
that scene where she slaps him, that has become like a trope now where the grieving mother slaps the detective because he didn't catch the bad guy.
well, I have to admit, when I saw it in the theaters all those years ago, it just stunned people in the
Yeah.
audience. Having somebody come out of the blue and give the hero of the film a smack across the face and dress him down in that way
Yeah.
is something you normally would not expect to see, right?
Right. Him getting slapped, that helps build that character. Just
Exactly.
something else that he has to get over. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
It gives him the motivation to do what he has to do to sort of recover his own self-respect.
Yeah.
I think that was, sort of a brilliant touch, and sort
Right.
of makes uh, that screenplay for Jaws almost like a template for a lot of other movies. So if you've seen similar things, it's probably because there's a whole lot of filmmakers that were inspired by Jaws when they saw it
Right.
as kids. We can learn something from thinking about the issues, the problems that these characters were dealing with, right? It's not an unreasonable thing for the mayor to want to prevent the town from having its beach closed for a couple of days or a couple of
Yeah.
weeks. They count on those, summer weekends to bring in the money that they're going to live on for the rest of the
Oh yeah.
year. When there's snow on the ground and then when it's cold and miserable. So it isn't really an outrageous thing. And I always thought it was such a smart move. It strikes me as being a typically Spielbergian thing to have Mayor Vaughn, when he's being pressured by Brody, when the horrible beach attack happens again and Brody's son is almost killed
Yeah.
and another man is killed. And Brody takes the mayor aside and he says, now you sign this. I'm going to hire Quint to kill the shark. A great performance by Murray Hamilton. He's sort of dithering, I did everything I should have done, right?
Yeah.
And then he says the thing that I think is the most Spielbergian.
Martin, my kids were on that beach too.
Now he has the guilt, the same guilt that Brody has. The greatest horror for people, very often, for adults at least, greatest horror that they can feel and experience is the fear of not being able to protect the people in their charge, whether
Yeah.
it's their children or the people that happen to be under them.
Another great scene too, and I think it was ad-libbed when he's at the table with his son and the kids imitating everything he's done. I think that was a great little,
Oh, that was wonderful.
character
Yes.
scene too, and I think they just came up with it.
Yes, they did, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Roy Scheider said that in one of the documentaries. He said that he was sitting at the table. He noticed the kid was imitating him.
Yeah.
So he went out to Spielberg, who was in another room, and said, take a look at this.
Yeah.
And then they shot it. And my feeling about Spielberg was there was a time when the films he made, it seemed like every scene he had the audience in the palm of his hand. People were just charmed by every scene in his films. Sweet, human, funny, whatever the emotion was, every scene the audience responded to, and there was no uncertainty. The audience didn't sit there thinking, gee, I wonder why they're showing us this.
Yeah.
And that was the other great thing about Jaws. The casting is just unbelievable.
You go inside the cage. Cage goes in the water. You go in the water. Shark's in the water. Our shark. Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies.
Robert Shaw, unfortunately, didn't have very much longer to live, really. He died in his 50s. But he was the sort of actor who was great in just about everything. I mean, he was wonderful in From Russia with Love, playing Red Grant, the psychopathic killer that Sean Connery goes up against. And he was great in the role that I think he did just before uh, Jaws, which was The Taking of Pelham 123.
Yeah.
He was also a brilliant writer. He wrote a play called The Man in the Glass Booth, which was highly acclaimed, and they eventually made a movie out of that. But he was just a singular individual.
I mean, one of the greatest scenes in this movie, Tim telling that story
Yes,
of
yes,
the, what is it, the Indianapolis?
right, right.
Just him telling that story was the scariest scene in the whole movie. It didn't even involve the shark from this movie.
Yes,
Just his delivery of it and people's reactions on their faces to stuff. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
You know the thing about a shark, he's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eye.
Of course, that whole scene of them in the boat, to me, that makes this movie.
Quite a lengthy sequence in the film.
Yeah, comparing the scars and all
Comparing the
that.
scars, and Richard Dreyfuss's character Hooper starts to get a little silly and giggly, right? He's talking about Mary Jo, whatever, broke my
Yeah.
heart. And then there's that wonderful scene where Roy Scheider looks at his appendix scar.
Yeah.
I wonders if he should mention that, and he decides against it. Uh, and then when Hooper is getting too silly, when Quint shows him the scar of the tattoo he had removed at the Indianapolis, and then he just sort of leans over and he sort of pats him.
Yeah.
That's the Indianapolis. And the fact that Hooper knows it, you were on the Indianapolis, And the interesting thing is, it wasn't common knowledge when Jaws was made. That was information that was just coming out about what happened to the crew of the Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think it was, I don't know if it was Zanuck or Brown or it might have been Peter Benchley. He said his housekeeper called off one day. She called, I can't come in today. And she said that her son was on the Indianapolis and she had never known what had happened to him until she saw Jaws.
Right.
And in a way, Jaws introduced that information to the country. I mean, most people were not aware of that. And it is kind of a horrifying story.
Yeah, I'm sure most people probably even thought that was just for the movie, like something they
Right,
made up for
right.
the movie, not that it was based on anything.
And there's a debate about who actually wrote it.
Was it in the book
No,
or?
no, I
Okay.
don't believe it. There was any mention in the book. Spielberg says that John Milius was involved at some point, but according to Carl Gottlieb, John Milius didn't write the thing. Apparently, that fellow,
Yeah,
there was
we
a
can't remember.
fellow whose name I can't remember.
That's what he gets for being uncredited.
Anyway, the bottom line is it passed through several hands, but Robert Shaw was the one that put it into its final form.
Yeah.
And he did a terrific job. Apparently, he was too drunk to get it right the first time. So he apologized, asked for another chance. They came back the next day and they did it. He did it in one take, apparently. Powerful, and sort of gave everybody in the audience who had any aspirations for being a filmmaker a lesson in how to make a really dramatic scene.
Yeah.
Just by having that change in the tempo and the humor of the scene, to have a comedic scene suddenly shift into this horrible
Right,
retelling of this horrific event.
The three actors, they were all three perfect. Just
Yeah.
came together, and it's like it wouldn't have been the same without them.
Oh yeah, I mean it just was perfect, perfect casting. And I have to say, even the lesser roles in the film, Lorraine Gary, if one wanted to be unkind, one could say, well, she was married to the head of Universal Pictures, right? So Sid Sheinberg, I guess, is his name. It was kind of a legendary figure,
Yeah.
and so being married to the guy who's running the company that's making the movie certainly is an advantage for any actor. But she's also darn good in it. She's exactly the type of person you would think that Brody would be attracted to, and
Right.
she plays that person as if that's a real person.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes with them is when he finds out his kid's is sitting in the boat, it's his birthday present.
Yes, yes.
Like, oh, just let him have fun. And she looks at the book and sees like the shark bites, and then she starts screaming, "Get out of
Right.
the boat!" You know.
Yes.
Michael, did you hear your father? Out of the water now!
It's so, I mean, how many times in our lives with our parents have we seen exactly the same sort of
Yeah.
thing? All those scenes have that feeling to them. So human and so real and so funny.
When they cut to her, when there were Brody and his sons at the table, they just cut to her reaction. It's like that's all you need. You don't
Yeah.
need. She doesn't need to say anything, or just it makes it perfect.
Yeah. It's a sweetness and a love that you feel in that family that makes you feel like you wish it was your
Yeah.
family. We were talking about the relationship between Hooper and Quint. And towards the end of the film, when Quint is really putting on the pressure on the boat to try to get it into shore, he's going to drag
Hmm.
that taxidermy man is going to have a heart attack when he sees what I'm bringing him, and smoke starts to come out of the engine because they just repaired the engine. And Hooper tries to stop him. He says, "You can't push it that hard. You won't take it." And they start to engage in a little struggle. And it's probably the only real physical fight that they have in the film.
Yeah.
And Quint pushes him back. "Shut up, you!" And he pushes him back. And so Hooper has sort of been put in his place. And to recover himself a little bit, he turns to Brody and says, "Hang on." And I thought that was such a smart
Yeah.
character touch, right? He's not the sort of fellow that would ever admit that he just got whooped.
Yeah.
He has to go and assert his authority on the guy who, up to the very end of the movie, is sort of like on the lowest rung of the ladder, right?
Yeah.
He's the one that everybody is dumping on. And so he's trying to get a little of his ego back, trying to restore himself a little bit by giving a direction to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I thought those are the little touches. It almost felt like they were ad-libbed or something they came up with in the
Right. Yeah.
moment. Some of the things actually that became very famous, like "You're going to need a bigger boat."
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Apparently that was Roy Scheider's ad-lib line.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it was ad-libbed in the moment, but
Right. Yeah.
he had the idea of saying that, and it ended up in the film. The thing that helps to make it real is that it's not like the way they do movies nowadays where you feel like everything is planned out and everything is precise and every shot is perfectly composed. And here it has a sort of spontaneous feel to it. Like, for instance, it would be very easy to miss the fact that Chief Brody and his wife have a dog,
Right.
right? It's there in some of the shots, but they don't make a point of it. They don't feel a need to make a point of it. Those are just little things that should be around the edges that create the impression that you're in a real place. But I have a feeling nowadays that filmmakers would be so impressed with these little touches that they're adding that they would want to focus on it.
Yeah.
You can't have a dog without doing something with the dog. The dog has
Yeah.
to play into the story. But Spielberg doesn't seem to feel a need to do that.
One of the actors said it was like one of the first movies they were on that everybody communicated with over the radio. So I guess that's how a lot of the news was getting out.
Right.
That
That's actually
the shark didn't work. Yeah.
right, right. That's that line comes from, I guess it was Richard Dreyfuss that told that story, that you could hear all over the island, "The shark is not working, the shark is not
Yeah.
working." And so yeah, that probably isn't it. I mean, the thing that made the shoot so difficult is what made the film so wonderful.
Oh yeah.
The fact that they were shooting in a real place often with real people in the minor roles. Uh, the That gave the film a feeling of realism and a sense of place that you don't get when things are done on studio sets, or when Hollywood comes in and completely takes over and doesn't, take advantage of any of the stuff in the
Yeah.
place that they're shooting. Uh, and like I say, those scenes on the 4th of July of the beach and the ferries coming in, delivering the tourists, that stuff looks like it could have come from a news report. You know, it has such a feeling of reality, and it's also exhilarating. With
Yeah.
John Williams' music, they're building up this feeling that this is a big day. let's hope nothing goes wrong, right?
Yeah.
And you got that undercurrent underneath all the music. They got like Scott Joplin music playing, and the kids are playing the video games. One of them is a shark killing
Yeah.
game. And so everybody's having a great time, and yet there's that strain. What about the shark, right? Is the shark going to make an appearance? And they have that wonderful scene where the kids fake a shark. They have a
Yeah.
fin, cardboard fin, even though it's a very amusing scene, and it actually is quite spectacular with all the people trying to get out of the water and climbing all over each other. But you don't hear the John Williams music. And so the audience, on a sort of subconscious level, said, wait a minute, this can't be real, right? Where's the shark music? And of course, it isn't real. But then, immediately following that up with a real shark attack
Yeah.
in the
In the
bay,
pond. Yeah,
right? Yeah, the bay.
yeah.
That's brilliant, right? They got that girl say, shark, shark. She doesn't seem like she's even able to say it. And then there's that moment of hesitancy
Yeah,
where,
they cut the Brody and he's just like,
what's
probably
this
not.
now?
Yeah.
Another fraud. But then the urgency when she says, her son is in the water, their son is
Yeah.
in the bay. There's a guy trying to tell the kids how to put the sails up on their boat.
Right.
Hey, fellas, all in this sheet, make it fast.
And the audience, of course, can see that the fucking shark is coming up right behind them.
You guys okay over there?
So his little vessel gets knocked over and he gets put into the water. And the shark immediately, we see, I think that is probably the first time we actually get to see the shark underwater. We see the shark going for him. Very effective shot because they don't show you the shark in close detail. You just see underwater, you see the head of the shark going for him and he gets pulled down immediately. And then you have another shocking scene of the leg. First, you think you're just seeing a leg, somebody's leg, like they're going to hit, and then you realize the leg has been ripped off.
Yeah.
And it just floats to the bottom. That apparently is one of the shots that the MPAA asked to be trimmed, so you don't see quite so much of the bloody leg hitting the bottom. But apparently, originally, and they shot this, the shark has the guy in his mouth, and he's holding Brody's kid.
Oh, okay.
And he eventually pushes the kid out of the way, and he goes down with the shark.
And that's probably why the kid's in shock when they get him
Yes.
up on the sand. So,
But Spielberg said he didn't want to do that, and I agree with him. It was, first of all, it's too contrived that something like that would happen. It's too many things coming together at once. The chief's kid, happens to be the one that ends up in the arms of somebody who's actually half in the mouth of a shark.
Yeah.
That seems a little much. And also, it's a humiliating death, a bloody death for this guy. Doesn't seem necessary. It's too much, So they wisely cut that out. All we need to know is that the guy died, another death, and the kid was, came very close. I mean, his friends came very close to dying. So that's enough to make the point. The shark itself, when you stop and think about it, it was an extraordinary, I don't know if it was sort of a beautiful kind of insanity that possessed them, because you didn't see stuff like that in movies back then, because everybody knew there was no way to do it convincingly.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was a Ray Harryhausen movie, it would have been an animated shark, and everybody might have been charmed by the film, but nobody would have believed that it was a real shark. But in this, it needs to be real. You have to believe that it's actually there, and it has to be intercut with actual footage of sharks.
Yeah, I was gonna say I guess the shark they built was too big, so the only live shark they could film, which I guess they filmed it in Australia,
Right.
they had to build a miniature cage and get a little person to get in there to match the scale of it.
Most of that footage is fantastic. Most of the footage of the shark struggling on top of the cage. They edited things so that Hooper has already gotten out of the cage. And I guess he's sort of huddled down at the bottom of the ocean. But there's one or two shots where the shark actually turns its head towards the camera. I would have probably done without those, because that shark it looks great. The body of it looks great,
Yeah.
but the head of it doesn't look anything like the head of the Bruce
Yeah.
shark. The advantage that they had is because all this stuff came so late in the movie, you were completely invested in it. So
Yeah.
it didn't bother you that there were these little imperfections. I'm glad that they haven't gotten around to replacing Bruce with a CGI shark.
CGI shark, yeah.
And I hope that day never comes. Even though there are mistakes, like they had three sharks, and two of them had only one side, the side facing the camera, that were
Mhm.
completed. They were open on the other side. And there's one shot where it comes up onto the boat, and you can see right through its gills. You can
Yeah.
see the sky through its gills. So that was a flaw, right? No way to get around that. But the audience was so completely invested in the movie by that point that it didn't matter. And for a lot of people, this is a point that was made in one of the documentaries that I watched about the making of the film. For a lot of people, we didn't really even know what a great white shark looked like.
Yeah.
And for a long time after Jaws, we thought that that was what a great white shark looked like. We thought Bruce was what it looked like. So it wasn't as if we were able to sit there and say, oh, that's not what a great white
Yeah.
shark looks like. We accepted that that's what it would look like. And it was convincing enough to make the film work. And because they had such delays in getting it working, they came up with the great ideas like using the barrels to sort of signify when the shark is
Yeah.
around, right? The barrels pop back up and you say, oh, the shark's back, right? That was brilliant. Or even the
Oh,
other
yeah.
scene where the guys have gone out with one of their wives' roasts.
Yeah.
They're going to hunt for the shark. They put a big meat hook in the roast and they drop it in the water.
Come and get it.
And the shark goes for it. We don't see the shark, but we see the line going out. They've attached a chain to it, and it's
Yeah.
going. The chain is feeding out. But unwisely, they've attached the chain to the
To the
dock that
Yeah.
and it rips the dock off.
Hey, go! Go! Go!
And it's pulling the dock away. Both of the guys go into the drink. One of them gets back up onto the dock. And they had this brilliant moment of suspense. Again, the invention of it, the cleverness of it. We don't see the shark, but we see the dock, the piece of the dock that's been ripped off. It starts to turn around.
Yeah.
Start heading towards it. So everybody in the audience immediately knows what that means. And I like when the dock starts to turn around, we hear this sort of creaking noise.
Right.
And it made me think of another touch that Spielberg used. When the shark is blown up at the end and we see the carcass, the bloody carcass going down into the water, he put in this dinosaur sound from some old dinosaur movie, something from the 40s or 50s, echoey and faint, where you can just hear this. Now, literally, it doesn't mean anything because let's
Right.
be honest, sharks don't make sounds, and dead sharks certainly don't make sounds. But it was a sound that we couldn't quite make out what it was, but it was right for the moment. There should be some sound there. And as it turns out, it's also the sound that he used in Duel. When the truck goes over the cliff,
Oh, okay.
right? Same dinosaur sound as the thing. And again, it's not the sound a truck would make, but it's perfect for the movie. It's right for the moment. So those little touches bring the thing to life. And certainly in that moment, when you see that duck start to turn around and you hear that, it just ratchets up the tension and the suspense of the scene, and it makes it that much more effective. So it was just a fun scene, and apparently it was a real bitch to shoot because it was another day for night thing. And apparently they didn't feel that they were getting it. They kept doing it over and over, and apparently the actors' voices, I guess they used locals to play the two guys. And they looped them more than once afterwards with different actors until they decided, yes, we finally got it right. But that they could have so much trouble doing a scene that ended up playing so well
Right. Yeah.
in the theaters is just an indication of, yes, in the editing, you can fix almost anything, right? If you have you have enough raw material to work with, you can make any scene work as long as you're willing to put the work into it, right? Put the effort into it. Gonna keep fucking around with this scene until it works.
Yeah.
I saw that movie in one theater 5 or 6 times that summer. And that moment where somebody says, are you closing the beaches, Chief?
Are you going to close the beaches?
Yes, we are.
That's at the end of a reel. This is stuff that probably will be meaningless to young people.
Yeah.
The films used to be on reels, and the projectionist would have to switch to the next reel, and he would have little marks on the film that would tell him when to switch over to the next reel. There'd be a little hole punched in the
Yeah,
corner.
the cigarette burn.
Right. The print that theater was running had Brody's answer cut off for whatever reason. The print itself came that way, or the projectionist fucked up. He had to, damage the film, and so we were missing the end of that scene, or maybe it was the beginning of the next reel where
Yeah.
it says, "Yes, we are closing the beaches," and it didn't matter at all. The audience knew exactly. The
Yeah.
audience that was watching it knew exactly what happened just from the reaction of the people in the room, and just from the expression on Brody's face. So you have a film that's so effectively shot, it feels so real that even when there are pieces missing from the print, the audience is still completely involved in it, completely
Yeah.
caught up in it. I don't think you could say that about many films, right? I'm glad I watched it again because I'm a
Oh yeah, me
fan
too.
again.
I hadn't watched it in a long time, so this was like almost like the first time watching it again because
It
stuff
felt
you
that way,
forget.
yeah. Certainly for me, it was a great relief because it was such an important film for me when I was a kid that it would have been depressing if I went back to it and said,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's not very good." Yeah, it's very entertaining. It's a great film.
So you recommend everybody watch Jaws?
I do. I mean, I always have the same thing that I would say about any of these old films that we watch is try to get the best possible copy of it
Yeah.
and try to watch it on the biggest screen and have your headphones on so you can enjoy and appreciate the music and the sound effects and all of that. Because it really does make a big difference if people are trying to watch these movies on small screen. It just isn't as all encompassing
Yeah, it's
as
gonna
the
take
big
away
one.
from it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, I would certainly recommend this, and it's like I say, it's a relief to see that it is as great a film as I remembered it.
All right. Well, this was a fun episode. I promise you, we will not come back and cover the sequels.
Yeah.
I just don't think I could sit through watching all of them
No,
again.
I
But
wouldn't want to. I don't think I've made it through all of them the first time.
yeah.
I only watched one or two of them and gave up.
Yeah. This was a fun episode, and yeah, thanks everybody for watching, and till we do this again.
Thanks. Take care.